Ochako stood in front of the familiar door to Izuku's dorm room. She can do this. She can do this. Why couldn't she do this? She sighed. This seemed vaguely familiar. When did something like this happen again? Ochako groaned as she lightly pressed her forehead against the door. Right, when she had cooked katsudon for Izuku before they had dated. That seemed so long ago now. Ochako lightly tapped her head against the door a few more times, trying to figure out what to say before the door swung open. Ochako, not ready for the sudden opening, fell through the door frame, crashing down onto the floor inside the all-might-filled room. Ochako, Ochako, is that you? A sweet yet slightly worried voice said. Ochako, remaining on the ground, shivered at the sound of that voice. Why yes. Hello Mrs. Midoriya, Ochako said, slightly looking up with a red mark on her forehead. Inko squatted down, helping the brunette up to her feet. Ochako, I thought you and Izuku went into hiding. What are you doing here? Inko asked. Does this have to do with those monsters running through the streets? And why I'm here? The school requested that myself and other parents come to stay in the dorms until the streets are considered safe. I was given Izuku's old dorm. Where is he? Ochako stared at the green-haired mother, her round eyes filled with worry as they pierced Ochako's soul. Tears started forming in Ochako's eyes. I'm sorry. Ochako said, lowering her head to look down at her feet. I couldn't keep my promise to you. I couldn't stay by Izuku's side. He got taken. Inko's hand went to her mouth as tears started flowing down her own cheeks. Inko sniffed loudly before closing the door behind them, now both standing inside Izuku's UA dorm. Did you let him go willingly? Inko asked suddenly. Ochako slowly raised her head, her eyes wide. What? Ochako asked, a bit confused. Inko raised her motherly eyes towards Ochako. Whoever took my boy, did you let them take Izuku willingly? She asked again. Ochako stood unmoving for a second before slowly shaking her head. And no, not at all. We all fought, to keep him here. We were able to save Eri and another girl but Izuku suddenly got up. He seemed different from what I was told. He fought until he couldn't and I couldn't keep up. I wasn't good enough. I couldn't save him. Ochako was gasping between her sentences now, trying not to bawl in front of her lover's mother, however the need to cry was getting stronger and stronger. Inko, however, shook her head slowly as tears trailed down her face. Then you did not leave his side. Knowing you plan to get him back no matter, don't you? Inko asked. Ochako nodded, biting her lip to keep the gasps in. Inko smiled sadly as she moved forward, bringing Ochako into a hug. Ochako, caught off guard by the sudden wave of affection, stopped breathing for a moment. Then you haven't left his side at all. In fact, you are more by his side than ever before. Please, don't think for a second that I am mad at you, or blame you. I see the scars you have on your arms. You did everything you could. You're a trainee, it should not even have been a responsibility of yours. Ochako's breaths were getting more heavy as she listened, raising her arms to return the hug. Izuku wants to be a hero. I hate that. I don't want my baby boy to be a hero. I've always supported him. Even when he was little I would play hero with him. Now that reality has set, and he's actually gone through with being a hero. I wish I had never even allowed him to watch those All Might videos. But that's all in the past. Izuku has made his choice. All I can do is pray that he will find his way back. Ochako buried her head into Inko's shoulder, letting the sobs take over yet again. And I believe you'll be able to get him back. If anyone can, it's you, Ochako, Inko said, holding the girl tightly. But please, don't get taken along with him. I can't lose you too. Ochako continued to cry into Inko's shoulder, gripping the mother tightly. Looks like she did still have somewhat of a parent after all. You already have Ochako Uraraka and Katsuki Bakugo on a mission, Aizawa asked as he opened the office door. All Might sat on a couch, his hands connected as Principal Nezu sipped his tea. Unfortunately, those two are the best chances we have at getting Midoriya and Monoma back. Especially Midoriya, Nezu said. Are you sure they shouldn't be resting? Aizawa said, walking towards the desk and sitting on one of the couches. As much as we want them to, there's no time, a voice said in the corner. Aizawa turned back to see Endeavor, standing with his arms folded in the corner. According to our hidden source, the Liberation is once again meeting up in the same place in the forest. We need to act as soon as possible. Before we had enough heroes for this job, but now we are severely outnumbered. Aizawa said, how are we going to do this without enough heroes? Izuku Midoriya. Nezu said simply, sipping his tea. Well, that's great and all, but Izuku Midoriya is in the villain's hands, Aizawa said matter-of-factly. And I would rather get my students back as soon as possible. And that's why we are going to use him, All Might said. We believe Shigaraki is intentionally gathering up all of the Liberation into one place. Endeavor said, not to rally, but to execute them. We think he's expecting us to come. To execute them, Aizawa asked. That didn't make much sense. Why would Shigaraki wanna execute his following? Shigaraki doesn't care about having supporters or anything along those lines, All Might said, almost sadly. He doesn't want to be a ruler of anything. No, the boy just wants everything burned to the ground. Heroes and villains. And he wishes it to stay that way. So what better way than to have both parties he needs gone fight each other to the death? Endeavor asked rhetorically. Or, use that upgraded decay quirk he might potentially have to knock out both parties at the same time. Nezu chipped in, okay, understood. But what's this got to do with Midoriya? Aizawa said, getting a bit impatient. You need to calm down, erase your head. Endeavor said, noticing the amount of emotion coming from the erasure quirk user. We all know you've been spending all your time trying to find Dr. Asagiri. However, you know that the Liberation and the League are one in the same issue. Don't get so tunnel-visioned. That woman mangled and abused my friend's body and took multiple students from us, not to mention being a part of nearly killing the students that went to Sapporo. Including your own son. Aizawa said, standing. If anything, she's the answer to a lot of our questions. I'm not leaving more of my friends or students alone to die. I would think you'd be a bit more upset for your own son's injuries. Quote. Endeavor's flames grew just slightly bigger, however he refused to answer. Aizawa felt a slight pang of guilt in his chest. It wasn't Endeavor's fault that Oboro had been turned into a Nomu. We will get her in due time, dear Aizawa. Please, you know how hard this profession can be, you teach it. Nezu said, please, sit. Aizawa stood for a moment before slowly sitting back down. Look, the reason we are placing our bets on Izuku Midoriya is simple. Izuku has the power to stop this. Nezu said confidently. From what it sounds like, Izuku doesn't even have his memories. If anything, his quirk seems to be out of control. We have no idea what state Midoriya is in. Aizawa said tiredly, which would accomplish two things. One or the other, Nezu said, raising two paw-like fingers. Either A, we can trigger his memories and have Izuku take the enemy down for us himself, of B. We can trigger Izuku's quirk and try and direct it towards Shigaraki. The second plan was All Might's idea. Aizawa squinted his eyes, realizing the intentions of the plan. That's why you want to send out Bakugo and Uraraka as soon as possible. They have the most drive to find him, while also being the best chances we have at triggering either memories or the quirk. He said. The rest in the room nodded. Aizawa sighed. There seem to be a lot of holes in this plan. Aizawa said. Nezu nodded. Indeed, but that is by intention. We are hoping Uraraka and Bakugo can fill in the gaps. Unfortunately, we have our hands tied up with planning the Liberation Assault mission. So it's in their hands now. Nezu started. And honestly, we don't believe Ochaco Uraraka would actually listen to anything else we would give her. All Might finished. So what do you have her doing? Aizawa asked. Dr. Asagiri had been keeping tabs on the schedule here at UA to determine the right time to strike. We know there's someone keeping watch on us. Nezu said, twirling a pen as he looked down at the papers he had, scheduling everyone's movements in the building. An inside traitor. Do we really think it's someone on the inside? Same idea we thought when the school was infiltrated at the beginning of the year. Aizawa asked. All Might, Nezu and Endeavor, however, shook all their heads. No, All Might said. We actually think it's someone on the outside looking in.